All righty then. How you doing? Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show, powered by BetUS. That was a game befitting of a football Sunday. Let me tell you. Boy, a lot of thoughts coming into this game, coming off of that Atlanta loss. I know there was a level of, I don't know if I want to say anger, but definitely like a level of angst, let's call it, with this team coming off of that Hawks second half debacle is really the only way to put it. And Knicks had some time to think about it. This was obviously their longest stretch of the season in which they had off. So I was, like I'm sure many people were, very curious how they were going to come into this game and what type of effort, and not that we've really had to question the Knicks effort this year, but like, it when you see it with a team, and too many times they haven't had it. And in the second half against Atlanta, maybe for the first time all year, they're not having it parlayed itself into letting go of the rope. So you wanted to see how they were going to respond against a team that is, without question, offensively challenged. You could make the argument that they right now, down Franz and down Paolo, as offensively challenged as any team in the league. But, and this is an important but, there is no team that is more of a pain in the ass to play than this Magic team. Maybe the Thunder, because they're Thunder on pace to like probably set the modern record for defense. But the Magic are right there. And if anybody watching this, watch the NBA Cup game against the Milwaukee Bucks, you saw it. That game was there for them. I mean, the Magic hit one more shot down the stretch. Bucks missed one more shot down the stretch. That game could have easily gone in the other direction. We could be looking at the Magic in the Cup Finals right now. So they have a way of overcoming their offensive challenges. And in the first half of this game, and anybody who was on with me for the KFS halftime show knows that this was my stance. This is not me making it up. I was not pleased. I was not pleased with the effort that the Knicks came out with out of the gate. It seemed like the starters picked up right where they left off in the second half against Atlanta, and I do not mean that as a compliment. And it wasn't until the subs really started to check into the game that you started to see a little bit more from New York that you were hoping to see out of the gate. And then as the half closed is the first time I really felt like, oh, okay, they're starting to play their game now, as opposed to playing right into what Orlando wants, which is for an offense to be scared, which is how it felt like the Knicks came out of the gate in this game. And on defense, just the Knicks, their first half defense is tough to judge because the Magic missed 8,000 threes. But I thought it was okay. It was fine, but like Magic obviously forced a lot of turnovers, couldn't do anything with those. So it was not the first half that I was hoping to see. I know I've been talking for a while and I haven't really said much positive after what I am going to say right now was not only a win, but a big win. An important win, and I think a win that showed us something. And how fitting is it that one game after a second half that felt like it defined the season in all the wrong ways, how fitting is it that we got a second half in this game against the Orlando Magic that I kind of am sitting here hoping maybe defines what is to come? Because the performance the Knicks put forth in that second half, by no means perfect. Again, perfection right now is not the goal for this team. I don't know that it will ever be the goal for this team, but it sure as shit is not the goal right now. Right now, we are just looking for a consistent, repeatable style of play at both ends of the floor, regardless of the opponent that they face. And I say regardless of the opponent because it's great to put up points when you're facing, the little sisters of the poor. But when you face a team that could really give it to you on defense, what are you going to do to respond? And then on the other end of the floor, can we find some modicum of consistency where it doesn't feel like it's more what the other team isn't doing when the Knicks defense has quote unquote success, but it is more what the Knicks defense is doing proactively to the team that they are facing. And I think they checked both of those boxes in the second half tonight. That was a game at halftime that could have easily gone in either direction. The Magic, I think they shot 16% from three in the first half. They ended up shooting, they were 3 of 18, I believe. They ended up shooting 50% from deep in the second half of this game, which if you would have told me at halftime that the Magic would hit 6 of 12 threes in the second half, I would have been like, oh shit. Because that would have said to me that that was their biggest weakness in the first half and that they fixed it. And that I would not have been certain that the Knicks were going to win this game. And yet the Knicks did all the things they needed to do to win this one. And I thought that manifested itself in several ways. The thing I'm going to start with is, yes, defense is a team game. And I thought there were some possessions there, in particular in the fourth quarter, where you saw the level of, I've used this term, a ton of times already this year, but it's the most relevant term to me. You saw connectivity in their defense in the fourth quarter that had been missing. It was a connectivity, but it was also a compete level. And I do think, while the compete level was there to some extent in the first half, I think they amped it up in the second half of that game. And when you combine compete level and an appropriate place with connectivity at an appropriate place, that's what this defense needs to do. And they look like a cohesive group. I thought that manifested itself in a lot of possessions. And look, give credit to Orlando, Mo Wagner, Tristan Da Silva. Both of those guys had, I believe, career highs tonight. And they earned it. Those guys hit shots, played well. Mo Wagner, he's always been a pretty good offensive player. I don't know if he's 32 points on 15 shots good. Clearly, this was a little personal for him going against Karl-Anthony Towns after Towns punked him the last time they had played. And so, good job by those guys. They brought it, and they made some tough shots, and they used what they had to their advantage. But by and large, I didn't think the Knicks defense ever let the Magic get going. And obviously, you want to see that against a better offense. It's going to look a lot more impressive if they do it against a better offense. But if you're just looking at the template that for what we saw tonight, I think that's a repeatable template. And that's the most important thing for me coming away from tonight. I'm going to remember the defense. Again, if they're playing a different team and they played that level of defense specifically in the first half, are they only giving up 91 points? Almost certainly not. But tonight, they withstood an iffy first half, and then they brought it home in the second half, which is what really counts. I would be remiss, before I move on to talking about the offense, tonight highlight one player in particular on the defensive end, and that is Mikal Bridges. Because there's been a lot of ink spilt and a lot of, downloads downloaded, in which the main topic of conversation about the Knicks thus far this year has been that they got sold a bill of goods from Brooklyn and that they overpaid drastically. I mean, a lot of people looked at it as a drastic overpay before Mikal Bridges played a game this season. But then when you look at what he has brought to the table, or more accurately, what he has not brought to the table, it really put a stamp on it. And you were just kind of waiting. You saw signs. I think you've seen signs of improvement on the defensive end. I think, there's been a lot of good conversation about it, about is he in the right role? You saw Chris Herring the other day go on Ian's show and talk about how, he was really being used more in a help capacity, or that's where he, start as opposed to having to get around screens left and right when he was back at peak defensive levels in Phoenix. I thought he looked pretty good getting around screens tonight. And again, I know it's a little bit easier when you're guarding a guy that is not a threat from three, but I know the eye test that I saw, what that dude was out there doing, making Jalen Suggs' life hell. Jalen Suggs finished, what did he finish? 3 for 17 or something absurd like that. That wasn't all 4 for 19. There you go. That wasn't all Mikal Bridges, but I think a lot of it was Mikal Bridges. And if he's going to play that kind of defense, I think they're going to be okay. Was it everybody else? OG had obviously he had some great moments. I'm just now thinking to check if his streak is over. Unfortunately, he had, I think it was 7 straight games of I think two more blocks. I think that's what it was. So that unfortunately ended, but he was his usual very good self. Josh Hart, thank you for coming to the party. Speaking of underwhelming performances, I didn't think Josh Hart was particularly good in the first half. He came up big time in the second half. Again, more on the defensive end than anything else. But yeah, it starts with the point of attack, and that means it starts with Mikal Bridges. So heck of a game for him. And then I'm going to extend it to him being the first guy that I talk about when I talk about the offense. Didn't shoot it a ton tonight. Only shot 7 of 11 from the field. Only made 1 3. Again, for a guy that has not looked like the most confident basketball player on the offensive end of the floor this year, when he's doing things like when he's flexing, when he's chirping to the Magic bench, Josh Hart was chirping to the Magic bench too a little bit, when he's looking cross court after an and one to his bench, be like, did he call that? Did he call that? Was and one? Yeah. Like, we haven't really seen that stuff from Mikal Bridges this year. So, like, kudos to that guy for finding whatever it was that's been missing. If it indeed has been missing, maybe it was there all along and he's just deciding to show us a little bit more personality now. I don't know. I just know that the guy that I watched tonight is a guy that I very much would like to continue watching on this basketball team moving forward. Okay, enough about Mikal Bridges. Jalen Brunson. I spent a lot of tonight as the Knicks occasionally struggled to generate solid offensive shots, and they were overcoming that because they were doing some nice things to overcome it, but they were struggling to generate advantages. And I think the biggest reason for that is because their primary advantage creator, Jalen Brunson, was not creating the advantages that he usually creates. And you could chalk that up to the Magic defense. They obviously have Jalen Suggs to throw at him. And they have a lot of guys who, when they are switched onto Jalen Brunson, like, they're going to take their chances. Like a Wendell Carter Jr. is, he's a decent defensive center. You look up and down, like KCP, obviously, he's a very good defensive player, even if he may not be peak KCP. So, like, they have all of these guys that if Brunson Jonathan Isaac, that goes without saying. I'm not sure how many of those possessions there were, but like Isaac's another one. Like, they have so many guys who they can switch on to you, and you still feel like you're okay. And that it felt like Brunson was struggling with that tonight, but then I'm watching that and I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't feel like he has been able to get where he needs to go. I don't feel like he's been able to get where he needs to go as frequently as we saw him over his first 2 years with the Knicks. And I don't know, is that a function of him not wanting to force it? I don't know, is that a function of just something with him going on? But I do know, just as much as the Knicks defense found something, I think, in the second half, I think he found something as that game went on. And his drive and finish and scream over Jalen Suggs at the basket, is that my favorite Knicks moment of the season? I mean, we had a recent contender, obviously with the defensive play, the OG Anunoby block and the cat stand on that RJ Barrett game tying attempt against the Raptors. That's up there. The Jalen Brunson 3-pointer against the Nets is up there. This one's up there too for my favorite moment of the season, because I don't know. You're not going to keep that guy down for long. And it's funny. I'm talking about a guy who is a no doubt about it all-star. His numbers, he is more efficient than at any point in time with his career with the Knicks. He has become one of the most lethal 3-point shooters in the league, and you saw that again tonight. He shot 4 of 8 from 3, and that's only because I think he missed a few late. But like the dude had 31 points on 18 shots. So for me to sit here and be like, I don't know, there's something missing, something that's been not quite right with his offensive game. You want to talk about an abundance of riches and being spoiled to the point that you don't know what to do with it. But like watching him, I'd be lying if I said that hasn't been a thought. So I'm looking for progress as I do with everything on this team. And to me, that moment that he had, I wonder if we are going to look back on that as something that we remember. Couple other things. Let's go through a couple other players here. Karl-Anthony Towns had a 2020 game, the first 2020 game they said on the broadcast since Julius Randle did it. Fitting that those two players will face off against one another in Towns' old home, Julius Randle's new home, 4 days from now. Also, 5 assists for Karl-Anthony Towns. Not bad. I will look up later how many 2025 games there have been in Knicks history, but it's like the guy. We saw some of the bad Towns tonight. We saw some of the drives that maybe aren't great. You saw, some of his. Some of the low lights that they had on defense. Towns was sadly involved in a few of them, but overall, tough game from Karl-Anthony Towns. And I want to highlight one play, in particular. Orlando in the third quarter, when the Knicks had really, it seemed like they might have grabbed hold of the game. The Magic went on an 8-0 run. Didn't think that there was anything terrible about the 8-0 run. Like I thought the Magic just made some shots. The Knicks defense was okay. The Knicks just missed some shots. And then Cat had a putback off a Jalen Brunson tough miss to make it go back to 68-60. And I thought that bucket it's like anytime you get a run, the first bucket to stem the tide. And if it does indeed end up stemming the tide, which I thought that did stem the tide because they never got it that close again, I thought that was super important. Jalen Brunson shortly thereafter had a beautiful lob to Precious Achiuwa. Thought that play was important too. And then they played some fantastic defense to close out the third quarter. A couple other shout outs here. Deuce Pride just keeps doing what he does. Takes 2 threes, makes 2 threes, including another shot that I thought was one of the more important shots of the game. A 3 towards the beginning of the fourth quarter. Again, Magic were still hanging around, still making a little push. Lead got down to 7. That Deuce Pride was a contested 3. Tough shot. So shout out to him. I mentioned Josh Hart already. I thought there was a big moment for him when he had that almost steal towards the end of the fourth quarter that he was then fouled on because, again, Magic were still trying to make one last push. But the autograph signature moment of the game, I am reserving for I guess you'd call it an offense sequence. So JB hit a step back 3 to take the lead from 8 points to 11 points, made it 83-72. On the other end, great defensive sequence from the Knicks, culminating in a Karl-Anthony Towns block. How many, it was only block of the night, but it was a big one. And then that ended with a Josh Hart tough finish. It was bing, bang, boom, back and forth and back again. That's my autograph signature moment of the game. Shout out to Autograph. Go download their app to get rewarded for your fandom, and check out from me tomorrow a brand new Macri 3x3 where I'll recap this past week and then look forward to the week ahead. So just a big time performance by the Knicks in the second half. They outpunked the punker, getting Jalen Suggs to foul out. Mikal Bridges ending it with I thought the last relevant play of the game was his block at the rim when the Magic were making one final push. You got some nice minutes from Precious Achiuwa. You got, a couple, I thought Campaign, the spark that he provided in the first half was important. At this point in the season where we're all still trying to figure out what this team is and what they can be, any piece of evidence that I think is repeatable or indicates something that is repeatable and that is of significance in the moment, I'm going to make a pretty big deal out of, just because of the amount of uncertainty that there is about the Knicks and what, again, what they are and what, if anything, needs to change for them to get where we all hope that they could go, Or is it, as we've talked about now for a while, is it just time? And do they just need time? So, look, they're going to tell us what they are. Like, keep winning games, keep putting forth defensive performances like this. It's going to quell a lot of fears. If the inconsistency continues and they go out there in Minnesota on Thursday night and they just, again, it looks disjointed, it doesn't look great, and they can't build off of this one, then you're not back to the drawing board, but you're back like, all right, I'm not sure what we really know about this team when all is said and done. So for right now, things looking good. I'll take the win. I will take 15 and 10? 16 and 10. Yeah, 16 and 10. And I will take, look, I know it's a little bit early to look at the standings. But you'd rather be higher in the standings than lower in the standings. And I will take third place in the Eastern Conference. I virtual tie with Orlando, game and a half up on Miami and Milwaukee, 2.5 up on Atlanta, and then you get to some under 500 teams. But like for all the up and downs, a lot of downs, right? To be 16 and 10, to be in third place in your conference, which I know is not the better conference, but I'll take it. I'll take it for sure.